Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing, my friend?
Good, good.
Yeah, so we'll have a few people popping in and out today. Be on for about an hour. Um, what what's trending, man? What's on your mind today?
The business networking within the community, it's just something that gets overlooked sometimes, and people think that, as we said, posting pictures of guys on yachts with or cars with women and all that, that's the easy part. And what people don't realize about your community is that we are doing an absolute ton of business networking in the background. Guys from all over the place getting together, swapping ideas, and some guys have even developed client relationships out of it. Somebody popped into our business network chat this week and needed something to do with product quality control and barcoding, and within an hour you had a bunch of guys messaging. A bunch of guys are experts at digital marketing. It's just, when a group of guys get together, they need to share their skills and highlight what their skills are.
I think that for that chat group, it's probably going to be useful if it's name, and then after the name, they put something like whatever their superpower is, right? Like everybody's
Yeah.
got a skill, right? Like I don't really
Hmm.
care about your money or your car. I mean, like I'm more concerned about your skill set and
Hmm.
what problems you can solve.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well,
that's what business
something.
networking is, right? Is basically finding problem solvers.
And one of the things I learned a few years ago that's really beneficial is a one-page capability statement, because it's like a written elevator pitch. And I did a capability statement and I sent it out to a few people, and I got a few new clients out of it. People
What is
just
it?
want one.
What does a
Okay.
capability statement look like?
Well, I did. It's literally telling people what your skills are, where you're from, what you do, and what your superpowers are,
Hmm.
the fields you operate in, and maybe just a brief, past clients.
You know what I'll
And
do? I'll actually talk to Velco and I'll see, like on the members map. You know how we have the members map on the Zenforo forum where
yeah.
everybody's at and shit. I'm gonna see if I can have him add like a like a one pager to that, like exactly as you're describing it, and maybe
Because
have it searchable.
I had to do some federal contracting years ago, and the one thing they required was a capability statement so that when people go into the federal contracting system here in the US, they can pull your one-page capability statement about your company. So it's almost like a flashcard,
Yeah,
like even like I don't want to say a Pokemon card, but like it has all your powers on there.
that makes sense.
So, and the more you put guys together and the more you see what shakes out business wise when guys just kind of get beyond the whole, chase and
Ramen.
tail aspect of life, yeah, and
Yeah.
whammons, when they start to network and stuff just starts happening, and it's actually amazing to just sit back and watch it. Um, even guys that you wouldn't expect this week, they just popped into the chat and said, "I need this, I need that," and there's like a couple of guys in Europe, a couple of guys in Australia, and a few guys in North America that are all honed in this field and area, and they can give advice that you might hire a consultant for, or else you'll end up hiring them or being clients of theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up, Jared? What's up, Muff?
Not much. It is bright and early on the West Coast. I am not liking the time change so far, but we'll get used to it.
You still in San Diego?
Yeah, I'm in San Diego. I'll go back to Mexico tomorrow night.
Okay. So I guess Renegade is either out still partying or probably just crawling in a bed, eh?
He stays out late, from what I've heard.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
he's a
think
night
the other
owl.
night we all went out. I think we were home by midnight or so. But he texted. He's like, "Yeah, I got like 45 minutes of sleep." It's like, dude, I crashed immediately.
He's a tall dude, eh? He's like almost 7 foot tall, that guy. He's big.
What did he say he was, like 6'6" or something
He's
crazy like
6'6",
that?
yeah.
He
Six
yeah, he
six, six
dwarfs
seven.
me, and I'm not that short. I'm just shy of 6.
Dude, he's like the only guy that I stand around where I'm like looking up at him like, all right, cool.
He's up there. Yeah.
Yeah. And for us guys over 40, late is like 11:30. Just so you know, Jaron and Moff. Okay.
Oh,
Your
I'm getting there.
your version of late is Waffle House at 5 a.m.
Dude, late for me is 10. I'm like up at 4 every day. Like I'm in bed by 10 o'clock most nights now.
I'm slowly heading in that direction. I normally wake up naturally to the set or sunrise, so it doesn't really matter when it is. It's early here in California. In Mexico City, it's a little later.
The further south you go, the more consistent the sunrise and sunset
Yeah.
is, right? Like you don't get those like very early mornings or like very late, sunrises like you do where I'm at. Like in the summertime, the sun's up at like 4:50 in the morning. Like on the summer solstice and the winter solstice, it's like fucking 7:38 almost.
Yeah, well, I realize it gets dark here really early, which I had lived here before. So 4:30 p.m. sun's already going down.
Yeah.
In Mexico City, it's 6:30 pretty consistently. Sun starts coming up around then, starts going down around then. Summertime, maybe a little later, like 8 o'clock or so. But yeah, it's not like when you get further up north in the northern hemisphere and you get those really late summer days and early summer mornings.
How was the San Diego meetup? What did you guys do? Like, what were the highlights?
We just shot the shit.
I can't say.
No, we just
Yeah.
I was out there for work, and so like during the day, I was just shot, and so I met up with these guys downtown, and we hung out for a couple hours, but couldn't make it the second night. But yeah, it was. I was only out there for a couple of days. Back now.
Cool.
Hey, guys, I'm going to bounce now, but Moff, you might elaborate on just how our business networking within the group has taken off, because it's been pretty phenomenal the last week or two.
Yep.
All right. See you,
All right,
50.
guys.
Later.
Ciao. All right. I don't even know if I like this spread. I kind of like it this way a little bit better. It's better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's your take on the business chat, Ben? Because I've been busy running school and everything else. So I just popped in there the other day. It looks like it's pretty active.
Yeah. So far, it's been great. I think that a common criticism of just the space in general is that it's all about chasing women, chasing ass, getting laid, all that kind of good stuff. And I think that was also a criticism that you had when it came to, some of the stuff that was going on with the former group that you'd worked with and those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So what, and 50 Shades was really a pioneer, and I sort of just kind of helped. And now I've sort of taken a larger role onto it. So he was kind of the first one that started championing these meetups. Like the Miami meetup was his idea.
Mm-hmm.
The one we did back in November of last year, kind of like the first big one.
Mm-hmm.
And what started off was like, hey, let's get a couple of guys down there, like 7 or 8, turned into 25 plus dudes, a photo shoot, got a mansion, drove supercars, lifted, all that kind of good stuff. And so it's really, really worked out that we've now done that a couple of different times. But recently we had this idea where we noticed that a lot of guys coming into the community are, in LTR successfully. There seems to be a commonality about really top shelf, highly successful guys tend to, in my opinion, seem, at least in our demographic, seem to be more likely to be in LTRs. They're less.
What do you think that is?
I think it boils down to I think it boils down to time for the most part. I think it boils down to time because it's just spinning plates takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
It is a headache and it's a hassle. And I think guys that are really chasing excellence and have to build their businesses, like that takes a ridiculous. I mean, I'm kind of going through that right now as I'm trying to build my own thing. Where I'm starting to lean towards, okay, I think that powering down the engines a little bit and maybe trying to look for maybe one or just a smaller handful that are going to be easier to manage and are not as much effort is something that speaks to me, at least right now. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I do think that the hang up there sometimes is that, as you know, LTR game is playing the game on hard mode. So guys, just because they're really successful in business, they'll still have problems and they've still got LTR issues. So it's always an interesting juxtaposition. You see kind of like the younger guys or dudes that are just starting out, like hitting the dating apps really hard, spinning a lot of plates, and guys that are successful business owners, entrepreneurs, et cetera, seem more likely to have maybe one main chick or kind of a solid LTR for them.
Yeah. No, I've noticed the same thing. Like a lot of guys' main goal is like, how do I get the girl? Like, how do we get the girlfriend? But like we've talked about before, managing an LTR is, I don't know if it's more work. I'd say it's harder if you don't know what you're doing than spinning plates, because spinning plates is easy. If she acts out or she's a pain in the ass and you've got other options, just whatever, you just ghost her, you don't bother. But if you have an LTR, it's like you kind of have to play the game a little bit differently, and I don't think a lot of guys are equipped, which is why most guys go through betatization through 1,000 concessions and they become like weaker former versions of themselves. Like you had a huge transformation, Moff, from when you were just kind of like starting, like when I first started talking to you when you first called in, and it's like you were just exiting the LTR. Like you've definitely changed your game and your attitude and your outlook on life. you know, because you've adopted the new mindset. So it's like, you know, when you deal with a chick over a long-term basis, she's going to beta-tize you. It's not a question of if, it's just how much. Like I'll be straight up with you. Like, you know, if I was single, spinning plates, you know, doing whatever the fuck I want, I would be a notch higher than what I am right now. Like I've still had to soften my tone a little bit. Like you have to play a little bit of beta game when you're with chicks, right? Because that's what they are. You know, they're softer, they're more emotional, right? So you have to kind of play that a little bit with them. But yeah, it's kind of like if you're an entrepreneur and you got a chick in your orbit, you know, she's your girl, you know, you're an LTR, you're married, whatever, you should be highly productive. Like you should be getting a lot more shit done, because like dating women and going out and dealing with them all the time is a lot of work. And like the payoff at some point, it's like, well, it's just another check. It's just another check. It's like, you know, okay, well, what value does she add to my life? Like, what can she do to help me out? Right. Like I was telling you guys, you know, the other day that I'm going to start training with the guy that's taking care of my hormone panel. Right. And he's got like a full gym in his suite, and he's a former bodybuilder. So I'm going to have him train me for the next year. I'm going to start Monday. So probably by the spring, summer, hopefully, you know, if everything goes well and, you know, my health keeps up, he gave me the green flag, you know, with my organ health with the last set of labs. I'll be training like a motherfucker, and I'm not cooking. You know, my girl's going to do all the meal prep. She's going to lay it out for me. So that's a big part of it, is like not just training, but meal prep and sleep. A lot of guys out there are like, oh, you should take steroids, and that's all you got to do. No, especially when you're older, there's a lot of fine tuning that you have to do. And I don't have time for that shit. And fortunately, like I got a chick that likes to cook, and, you know, she's great at it. So she's going to be taking care of meal prep for me for sure. So it is a bit of a cheat code when you get it right.
And to finish the point, just back to the networking piece, you know, we started doing monthly Zoom calls. We do it the first Sunday of every month, and they're not recorded. We toy with the idea of recording them at first for guys that can't make it, because we do have a lot of guys that are, you know, across the pond that can't make it due to time zones. But guys have said, hey, look, like if this stuff's it has to live somewhere. So if you got to upload, you have to upload it to YouTube or Vimeo or something like that to have it live there unlisted. It still lives there, and guys are just not going to be as open and honest, and that's obviously what we're trying to avoid. But it's just strictly no girl talk. It's just like, look, come here to meet with guys. Because one thing I get a lot, it's like, hey man, I haven't been, you know, contributing to the group as much as I've wanted to. I had a guy email me the other day. He was like, hey man, like I joined the group a couple months ago. I've been so busy with my work. You know, I've been so busy like networking. And I'm like, bro, the group is networking. Like there's guys in here that will literally help you, and that can 10x, 20x, 100x your business if you would just get in here. And I was like, you need to get in like the business networking Zooms and figure out where everybody's at, what they do. And it's gotten a very, very good, very positive response. And it's, I mean, we've got probably, you know, 30 or 40 guys that have attended at least one meeting so far. So it's, and we've got another one impromptu planned for this week where guys are going to be talking about some of the pitfalls of business, not even just networking, where it's like a lot of guys that are entrepreneurs, I think like you could probably attest to. It's as lonely as the top is as lonely as the bottom, just for different reasons. And so not everybody out there is carving out their own wood and doing their own thing. So when you find guys that can and have those similar struggles, and you can bounce ideas off of each other, it fosters a really, really good and creative environment.
Yeah. Jaron, you've been pretty quiet, brother. What's rolling on between those ears?
I have been. I'm thinking in terms of the networking group, it is really great. I finally got settled into my place down in Mexico, and I've had a handful of guys from the group visit already, which I had the idea of getting a 2-bedroom place. I know at one point Moff is in a transition mode. He's now settled into Tampa. But on the way, he made a stopover in DC, and it was a case of where one of the guys in the group is like, hey, I have an extra 2-bedroom. I spend half the time raising my kids somewhere else. So if the place is open, it's yours. And I thought, well, that's a pretty cool idea. So I decided to set up the same thing. I was doing the digital nomad thing the last few years and decided, well, I'll set up a home base and at least have the opportunity to host guys when they're coming through town, since I live in a very popular town now. And that has paid dividends in and of itself. Guys can come down. It's not party. It's not whatever. Maybe on the weekends we'll go and do some touristy stuff, but usually it's just bust out the laptops. Hey, what are you working on? What are you working on? What do you got going on here? Oh, how'd you set that up? And it's been a really good learning experience. I think there is something to these groups, and the networking component has really just added that much more value. But in the sense that a lot of guys we're so much different in areas of our lives, but we have these core unifying, I wouldn't even say belief systems, but just goals in life of just being the best versions of ourselves, that it really allows you to do some cool stuff, like getting guys coming in and crashing with you, or you going and visiting guys, or seeing into other industries, other business types, and it's really started to balance out some sides of me in my professional life too that I didn't really realize at the time I needed to work on in those areas. So it's been definitely beneficial, and I'm looking forward to getting out on the road. I saw that Moff was a road warrior the last couple of years, largely due to what he does in his professional life too. But I realized coming into this new year, I'll be visiting a lot more guys and hosting a lot more guys. I think it's definitely beneficial, the value that we've gotten out of these groups.
Let me ask you a question, man. When you joined, I don't know how many years ago it's been now. It's been a few years, right? 3, maybe
A couple,
4?
yeah. Yeah, I think it's going on 3. I didn't do much for the first year and a half, and then
Yeah, that's what I wanted to
really
ask you.
picked it
Like for
up.
the first year and a half, like you were kind of there, flying the wall. You'd pop in every once in a while. I think the first time I saw you was at least 3 or 4 years ago. And the first comment I made, I was like, "Oh shit, we got Dan Bilzerian on the call," because you looked a lot like him at the time. Your beard was a lot thicker and fuller then, right? And you were all jacked, wearing a tank top or something. But
Yeah, it's probably something like that.
yeah, like you took a while to sort of immerse yourself into it and make the connections. Why did it? Like, was there hesitation? Was there something holding you back? I'm just curious.
Yeah, and I've actually posted on this before. I think I felt like at first, and it's like when guys pop into my DM or Moss DMs, they'll say a lot of times, "Well, what's the group about, or what do I get out of it?" They don't really understand the concept. So I think at first, I didn't quite understand the concept, what it was all about, how to show up, how to participate. That was one of the first groups I've joined. I've been in mastermind groups before, but
Mhm.
those are a bit different. It's not quite at the level that this group is.
Mhm.
So there was a summer where I realized, okay, well, I got the girl thing down enough, or at least I'm very comfortable in that area of my life. So I need to start making some cool guy friends, and that was actually really quite tough for me because
They're hard to
not
find.
the yeah, exactly. And I still notice that it's really difficult. Like in my head, I'm just a normal guy, and it's really difficult to find guys that even. It's hard to find guys that are at our level, but even take a step back from that, it's hard to find guys that just aren't kind of pieces of crap.
Mhm.
Guys that are going to rip you off, or they have an angle and they're going to try to get one over on you or throw you under the bus. It's really difficult out in the wild or in public to find people like that. So I wanted to start building my network. I didn't know what that looked like, and I thought, well, this is a good opportunity. There's a decent member count in the group. There's guys all over the world, so I'll start plugging into this network. Got into the group, started seeing stuff. A lot of the stuff I believe was business talk. As Moff said, a lot of people think all we do is talk about girls. There's actually very little conversation on that in the group. Most guys that they get to a certain degree of success, you'll find that guys, once you get there, it's really not too tough to get girls. It's just kind of fun. Now, what we'll notice things or have little theories or say, oh, if you say this instead of this, then this happens. But it's really not too much of the conversation. So
Mhm.
it was the point where I got in the group. I think a lot of it was business talk, a lot of it was professional stuff. And at that point, I was still trying to unplug from the corporate world during COVID. That pulled the wool from my eyes again, realizing, okay, I can work really hard, get myself in this position, get the lifestyle I want, and then just some arbitrary beer bug and the government can just pull that out from underneath me. So at that point, it was a bit of urgency too. Like I got to get going. I can't sit another decade and a half in a cubicle and watch the world go by. And I had wanted to travel since the day I stopped traveling. I traveled all through college, did all the backpacking and everything. So I just needed a bit of a life change. Got in the group, and I think at first, to be honest, I was probably a little intimidated, thinking, "What do I really have to offer?" There's some high level guys now. There's some really successful guys. And for me, it's like, okay, well, in my peer group, I'm the most successful. But now that I'm in a new room, am I really even right for this room? And
Mhm.
I noticed a couple summers ago, guys were asking a lot of questions that were pretty basic for me in certain areas of my life. So I just started answering those and trying to add a lot of value. And then very, very quickly, I was brought into the fold. And then somehow, which is still surprising to me today, sometimes guys accepted me, brought me in, and realized, oh, well, you kind of know a thing or two about this thing or two, and ended up getting at the generals level on the alpha unplugged alpha panel, and then now I'm pretty active in the group. Not so much in the post anymore, but I'm following Moff's lead and getting out on the road and meeting up
Mhm.
with more guys, or at least hosting guys at my place, and I'm getting a lot of value out of that.
Yeah, yeah. The starting point, the top 10%, like we moved a bunch of guys from there to the 1% in the last month because we had I mean, we don't open it up very often, but I always tell guys like whenever they start there. So if they want an easier starting point, talk to Moff or Jaron. They're more active on that table, and it's a lot more easy to get in because of financial obligations lower. But if you move from the top 10 to the 1, then whatever you pay gets applied to the next tier up. So that was a good move for a bunch of guys. Anything you guys want to talk about on that tier? Like what's going on there? Like, are you doing Zooms on that still, or?
Yeah, so we reincorporated. We're doing a monthly Zoom with the 10%. I'm really stoked to see some of the guys that have gone ahead and taken that next leap, because that was always what it was meant for.
Yeah.
The 10% is never meant to be a place where you're going to stay permanently. It's meant to be sort of a battleground, a proving ground, sort of the minor leagues where you develop your skills. I think sometimes where there are some misconceptions, especially with new, I would say younger members coming in, is that they expect a lot of hand-holding and a lot of direction from guys like us, where it's like, hey, this is what you need to do. This is, almost like it's a course. It's like, you're buying into the community. What you choose to do with a network is now on you. Now, that being said, a lot of the young guys don't have that kind of experience. They don't know the first thing about networking. They're just, for them, they're happy to be in a room of guys that are at least like-minded and that are trying to chase excellence and do the similar things. But it's only been around. I mean, we've been around for less than a year, I would say, with the 10%. I want to say we started in like February. So it's still starting to take shape and try to get an identity of its own. We've gotten probably just shy of 100 members, I think, at this point. But the whole idea is always to be using it as a funnel to get guys into the 1%, because that's where the real value lies. There have been guys that like to be big fish in a small pond, and if that's their thing, that's their thing. And there are certainly benefits in the 1% that are not going to be afforded to people in the 10%. That's kind of the point. So I'm really pleased with the growth so far. I think there's always room for improvement. And I think there's always, I'm always looking for feedback from some of the guys and some of the members too. It's just getting guys in there, staying active. How do we get more engagement? But so far it's having 5 guys, I think, at this point that have sort of graduated. And by graduated, we mean like they've taken the leap. Like, this has not been a, hey man, I'm going to sponsor you and pay your way into the 1% because you're a cool guy and you're a buddy. It's, we may make it a little bit easier on you by saying this is a really good opportunity to get in. Maybe it's a small discount off of the yearly rate. But guys that are taking action and that are putting their money where their mouth is, and they're understanding the importance and getting to that next level, I'm very pleased so far to see the kind of guys that have gotten in there. And there's a couple of guys that I had my eye on and I had top of mind that I was waiting to take advantage of.
Yeah, I saw they moved.
And they did. So I was pretty stoked about that.
So if you guys want to talk to Jaron or Moff, you'll find them on Instagram. You can probably just DM them, and then they'll give you the link to get in, because they're running that show for the most part. I'm fully busy with everything else in the top 1%. But yeah, check that out. I saw this week that, or in the just last day or two, that Elon Musk gave Twitter back to a bunch of people. Jordan Peterson, Kathy Griffin, Andrew Tate, a bunch of people. So it looks like Donald Trump might be next.
It looks like he's up in the air. It looks like Alex Jones is never coming back. I think there's a vote on Trump, and I think it's like 60-40 split. Yes, bring him back. I
think he'll come back because it'll drive engagement up. Like the people that hate him will just lose their shit, right? So it'll drive up huge engagement.
Yeah.
He always times his stuff, though, like any good politician. I think a lot of people think it's unique to Trump. He'll flirt around like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to run. I don't know if I'm going to run. I don't know. And then, oh, hey, guess what?
Here I am.
I mean, so he's playing that game.
Does because they've been talking about DeSantis or Trump running for president in the next election. Like, does DeSantis have a chance? Like, is he the guy that's going to do it, or as far as getting the leadership role?
Man. People love him down here.
What about the rest of the country, though?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there are people that say that the way he thinks and talks are not going to carry through on the rest of the country. But I think there are also people that are like, yeah, it's not 2016 anymore. Like, Trump had his run, and like that's it. It's don't know.
I think Trump's a little bit too old, and he kind of had his chance, and he didn't really do what he said he was going to do, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to give somebody else a chance.
Again, I mean, it's like we've gone so in the opposite direction with a guy like Brandon, and it's just it's almost that now are we forever going to be perpetually in this cycle of overcorrections where we're going to have a guy like Trump, and then we have to combat that, or people want to combat that with a guy like Biden, and then we realize that Biden's a fucking idiot, and now we need to go back to. So is it just, But that's I think the world we live in now in sensationalism politics. And I for one think it's awesome. Like I love the entertainment. I love Donald Trump just calling people liars
It's fun.
on TV and just being like, yeah, this guy's a fucking loser. Like that stuff's awesome. Like
Yeah,
I wish
hilarious.
more of that. That's great. Because the stuffy rhetoric that politicians have been spewing for, I mean, at this point, hundreds of years, just gets old and tired. But yeah, it's definitely fun to watch.
What do you guys got planned for the holidays coming up soon? Anything?
I'll be back in Mexico. So I think when I lived down there before, I used to do an international Thanksgiving to where I'd just open my place up and tell everyone to bring a dish native to their home country. And those were some really cool ones because we'd get a spread from all over the world. So I'm thinking of doing something like that. But
Oh yeah, you guys got
I
Thanksgiving
also-
coming up, right?
yeah,
That's on
and I
Thursday.
also like to.
When is that, a
I
Monday?
also like to use that time to catch
Thursday.
up.
Thursday.
Yeah,
Yeah, we had
Thursday.
ours last month.
Always the third Thursday.
Third Thursday, November. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be back in Virginia. I literally was in San Diego for a week. I'm here for a day. Then I'm back on a plane tomorrow for a week to Virginia. So see the family, parents, nieces, nephews, all that good stuff. And then going to probably plan another trip or two in December between Christmas and first week in January. I really liked San Diego, really enjoyed it out there. So some of these other guys that I've been working on this other side venture with are based there. So I got to see them, spend some time with them. I'd love to get to a point where I could get a second place out there, maybe spend, a month or.
You know who else is out there? He hasn't been that active, but Eric. He's the naval guy.
D.
Yeah, he's on the Ducati. On
I
the
must have said his name. Fuck. Okay.
I would definitely hit him up because he's a good cat, man. So
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you can bring him out to the next one.
Yeah.
I think he's in LA. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I think
he's actually in San Diego because he's
he
stationed
is?
there, naval.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were going to meet
How
him in
is-
LA one time. I think
How
you
is
guys
San
gotta come
Diego
out.
anyway? Like, is it as woke as the rest of California, or?
It's not as bad as the rest of California. I always say I like San Diego a lot. So, and my younger brother, he was stationed here for years, and he always says like San Diego would be the perfect town if it weren't in California. But it's not like the rest of California. You do have the homeless problem though. I'm downtown right now in a real nice building, and you can't walk outside. It's like Skid Row, literally the blocks all around us. It's really gross, but
That's
you
because
just
the
get in the
weather's too
car and
nice
get the
year
hell out
round.
of
That's why they all
downtown.
go there.
Yeah, it's really interesting, man.
Yeah,
I wonder how
exactly.
to think about that. I mean, I was in San Francisco in September for probably the biggest tech conference of the entire space, and saw no homeless people. And I mean, I'm
They
talking
cleaned them
about
out for the conferences.
they
Where
had
was that? Sorry,
San Francisco.
San Francisco. Okay, yeah, they must have
Yeah, they
cleaned
cleaned
them out.
them out for the
Super odd.
conferences.
Yeah, they just ship them out of there, I guess. So they just say, hey, like we're pushing you out. Like you got to go live on the outskirts for a week, or like
What do? They just drive around in a big coach bus and pick them all up and drive them somewhere else?
They're
Yeah, they just push them to the
they've
adjacent
got
neighborhoods.
camps, right? They've talked about doing camps, just putting them on the outskirts of town and just saying, hey, like this is where you're going to be. Like we'll give you a tent, we'll give you some access to water. I mean,
If
it hurts.
I can see
They're trying
that,
to do that in Seattle.
I can see that turning into
In
some
Portland.
like fucked up like Mad Max Thunderdome sort of camp at some
Lord
point
of
if they all
Flies.
kind of stay there and
Flies.
collaborate.
Yeah, Lord of the Flies type stuff. But it's like,
Yeah.
man, these guys don't want to move to these big cities. Like, it's the obsession with wokeness. It's the obsession with not cleaning up your town. That's going to keep people from moving to that.
Who's that politician that keeps busing immigrants up to like Camilla's house?
Is that Greg Abbott?
Abbott,
Is
that's
that the
it.
Texas governor?
He's Texas,
yeah.
right? Yeah, okay. I thought that was
Yeah, it
hilarious.
sounds like a Texas thing.
Nobody fucks with Texas. I love that shit.
No, they don't.
Yeah. Oh man. What else is going on, man? What else is on your minds today?
I want to talk a little bit about. I got a DM earlier from a guy. This is something that we probably all get quite a lot, and this is just something that I think most guys need to practice on avoiding. Well, two things. Well, so there was a guy that posed a question to me where he was like, "Hey, man, I'm at a crossroads. where I have to make a decision between staying what I'm currently doing, which is a job that I really like and that I'm good at, but I make absolute no money. And I'm in my 30s. I've got, I'm a single dad, and I watch a lot of your content. I watch a lot of Rich's stuff, and I understand how limited my options are when it comes to, women and my potential if I'm broke. And on the other side of the coin, there's this job that will pay me an extra, let's just say $1,500 a month, but I know I'm not going to enjoy it. It's going to be soul sucking, blah, 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 this and that and the other. Like, what should I do? And first off, like, the guy's already got his mind made up, because he was just like, yeah, I'm leaning towards the first job. I'm leaning towards staying it because I don't want to hate my life for the next yada, yada, yada. So I kind of already told him that. I said, look, like, you're going to make up your mind what you're going to do. But at the same time, like, this obsession with only do what you love, this idea that you should only do the things for money that you love doing and nothing else, that's a luxury that most people don't have. And that's a luxury that you earn by going through and doing shit you don't want to do and doing the jobs you don't want to do. And I said, look, man, like, what would an extra $1,500 a month do for your family? Like, you're a single dad, you have a son. Like, are you so obsessed with focused about being happy and being in a job that you love and it's sunshine and rainbows that you're not willing to go through a little bit of shit and a little bit of time where you just hate it so you can actually eventually live the life that you want to live? Mm-hmm. And this adverse reaction to any sort of struggle or any sort of BS just kills me. Like, how you, if you're not a guy and a man specifically who's actively embracing hard things and struggle, then what kind of life is that? And it just, I don't understand that those kind of guys that just like, oh, I'm only looking for the easy path and I have to make sure that what I'm doing, I absolutely love it or I won't do it. I think it's just bullshit.
Well, people always gravitate to what's easy, right? Add a little bit more to that. They once said that, the question that you would ask somebody as an employer, how much do you pay somebody to do a job? The clever answer to that has always been as little as possible, right? So you're never going to, generally speaking, in most jobs, unless you're C-suite, high-level sales, licensed professional that's, got high billing rates, you sell expensive shit, jets, expensive cars, stuff with big commission rates. You got a big book of business. You're never really going to make true wealth doing that. Which is why I'm a strong, I strongly encourage guys to lean into entrepreneurship. It's one of the reasons why I created my course, the School of Entrepreneurship, is because people are always asking me, I have an idea, I have this, I want to do this. How did you do it? Like, what's your story? It's like, fuck, like, buy the course, right? Like, you'll spend $20,000-$30,000 taking some shitty business course and get nothing out of it, but you won't spend $1,500 for a fucking well-organized course. But, to get off that rant for a second. But there's guys that are just stuck in that vortex, the single dads that are like, they went through the divorce grinder, they gave up half their shit. They're making large maintenance payments monthly. They don't have a lot of money at, the end of the month. They love their kids. They don't really have a lot of time to find that space to do it. I get it, like take care of yours and do what's right. But I still believe that you can find success and wealth and happiness as an entrepreneur doing something that you like, that you're good at. In fact, I would never say run a business that you're not fond of, because business is hard. There's always challenges. Your main skill needs to be a problem solver. You have to be able to solve problems. If you can't solve problems, you're going to fail. But you're not going to be interested or able to stick with your problem solving nature if you hate what you're doing, if you're building a business that you don't like, if it sucks, if it's a hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating business, as the acronym goes. But that's always a very interesting talk and discussion, because there's always that. We've all been bred to be corporate droids. We've all go get the degree.
5 years old. Go sit in the desk, raise your hand when you want to talk, ask to go to the bathroom. Say,
sucks. It sucks, man. I did it for 10 years. It fucking sucked. It's a soul sucking thing for most people. And it got to the point where it's like the highlight of my day. Like, I used to work on this 8-story building. Like, the highlight of my day was going down to the cafeteria, getting out of the office and walking up and down the fucking stairs, because I would get some exercise and get away from my desk and get away from people that were annoying the shit out of me. Right. It's like, you know, after a while, you got to realize, well, like that's the highlight of my day is walking up and down stairs and eating shitty cafeteria food, right? Like, I don't know, man. It's a long talk. I don't know. What do you think, Jaron?
I had to run some errands yesterday, and it's only been a few years since I was really focused on doing the minimalist mindset, getting rid of all my shit, just becoming free first, and then I figured out the finances a bit later. But yesterday, having to run errands, I had to get a new laptop for a new contract that I'm starting here soon. It's more of a secure nature, so I had to swap out laptops for me. Of course, even these large international corporate conglomerates, like, send it to the wrong address and then screw up this and screw up that. And I think we were talking about it maybe in this group at one point a few weeks ago, that you notice, and I'm noticing the US is becoming more like Latin America, to where there's not even really a difference between the two anymore. Everything you ask or order or get on the phone, everything's going to get screwed up to a small degree. It's always going to be something wrong. And when we were going around, I was trying to chase this laptop down. It's still in the UPS truck. Like, where the hell is the fucking driver so I can get my laptop before I leave the country again? And I forgot about commutes. And I remember Richie said soul sucking here, especially up north when the days get really short in the wintertime. I remember waking up still dark, driving to work, working in the cubicle. And then by the time I went home, it was still dark. And at that point, that's where I got to peak misery. This was even before COVID. COVID forced me to do the remote thing, because I thought there's no way I'm living in a beach apartment in Southern California with no consistent income on the long term. Like, those days are over for me, because you can do everything right, but you never really quite get ahead. But yesterday I was stuck in traffic, and I remember, like, I used to do this every day, and this seemed normal to me, and it was really strange. The other day, met some tech nerd at the park, and he's like, "Oh, you live in Mexico?" And people always ask you the same questions when you tell them what you're up to, so you kind of have the canned or stock answers for them. And just going through this guy's thought process, like, "Oh, I'd love to do that, but I can't leave my office job." It's like, well, dude, go to Angel.co. I think they rebranded it recently, but go to Angel.co, get on with these early stage startup companies, submit your resume. And then I always tell them, like, hey, even if I'm not fit for the job, here's what I'm really, really good at. You can bring me on 1099 consulting role. And that's where I get most of my gigs now. And you can see in this guy's eyes, he's kind of nodding his head like, yeah. And then he retorts with something like, yeah, oh, but I can't, I have to have my healthcare. It's like, well, you don't need healthcare down there. Oh, but I can't do this. Well, you don't need this because down there. And then I got to the point, I'm like, oh, I think he's curious about me, or maybe he's mulling around the idea, but he's not going to move forward in it. And I remind myself this is how most people think. And Rich, I had a question for you or Moff or whatever, if we want to transition to this topic a bit. We had a thread the other day in the group of one of the guys that joined had some issues in his love life early on, and he still kind of hasn't gotten over that milestone. And I've noticed this. I don't know if it's a self-defeatist attitude, but it seems like guys put obstacles in their way to not get ahead. There's 3 guys I met here recently that say, Jaron, I want to live like you. I want to do the Mexico thing. I want to do the minimalism thing. And I break it down on my channel. And even more so in real life, when I sit down to a guy face to face, I walk them through the steps of what I did.
They don't want to do it.
That's hard. Right for everyone.
They don't want to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, work is dressed in overalls and will be hard. And anybody that starts asking you questions about how you solve a problem in their life, and you start to give them answers, and they're like, no, well, I don't like that answer. I want a different answer. It's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
You're an asshole, right? Either do the work or don't. It's very, very common. That's why there's a very small, like, tiny contingent of guys out there that have amassed that much wealth. Like, there's all this money moving through the internet in the fucking world right now. Like, all you have to do is solve problems and reach out there and grab some of it. And the reason why people grab more of it than somebody else is because they work harder at it. They're more competent at it. They're more diligent. They don't give up. They don't fucking make excuses. Guys love to complicate their lives and justify why. I'm just looking here at the chat, and, Jerry was kind of talking to this guy, a non-capitalist. So in a non-account with, it looks like, is that the Jordan Belfort show? Yeah. Rich, I created $3 million+ businesses in the last 18 months. So this guy's claiming, last year and a bit, he's created 3 businesses that are doing over $1 million. My main business is 3.5 in the first year. My question is, where can I put my money in an automated way to maximize gains? Follows up with it, my business are an IT development ops looking either to diversify, rinse, repeat. Jerry says, book a private call. This is the private call, right? Like, this is like standard complicate life, justify why. You guys know that I do private coaching. Okay. If you're making $3+ million in the last 18 months, my rate shouldn't be a problem for you. I know I'm expensive, but I only deal high level stuff, right? So click the link, book a call, let's hop on it and chop it up. I can't read, I've done this and I've done that and offer you a reasonable solution. Book a call, pay for my time. I'm a specialist. If you want, the specialist answer, then pay for it, right? But like Jerry says, like you really can't answer questions like that on YouTube in chat. Like, like if you're going to throw a chat or a super chat or something like that, awesome. Appreciate it. If it's something that we can chop up, that opens up new discussions. But even when I do my Unplugged Alpha show on like Monday nights, people will throw something in the chat and I'm just like, dude, just click the link and join in and let's chop it up. Like it doesn't cost you anything. I do this for free every Monday night. I'm giving you guys a free opportunity to call in, but they'll still not do it. Right. It's like, what do you want me to do for you? Lead the horse to water and shove your face in the trough and make you drink it?
Yeah, guys, that was a question I was getting to for you. I've met this type a lot recently where guys like, hey, I'd like to live like you, or I want to be free or do the entrepreneur thing. And then it's like, okay, well, how old's your kid? Oh, 16 years old. I got 2 years. All right, let's get on it. And all of a sudden pops out a new baby. I know another guy, hey, I want to do the minimalism thing, buys a new boat. Another guy, hey, I'm going to do the entrepreneur thing, a good buddy here. And then gets a dog, and the dog requires all of his attention. And I realized that these three guys, and I've met them personally in the last couple of weeks, guys from hung out with earlier stages of my life. And I realized, okay, well, you start making some headway and then you put an obstacle in your way. I don't understand that. I've never quite been like that. So who's that guy? What does he look like? And why do they do that?
He looks like this guy over here.
Yeah.
Still asking stupid questions. Dude, book a fucking call. Actually, don't even book a call because I don't want to talk to you. You're too dumb. You're not listening. Go away. Dude,
it's very easy.
It is so easy to shine. Like if you surround yourself with turkeys, you're going to be a turkey. You like to soar like an eagle takes work. You have to flap those wings and get up to altitude and do a whole bunch of work and spot the fucking all those updrafts and ride them up. Like there's things that you have to do to get to where you want to get to. And if you're going to ask somebody questions, good, ask some questions. But if it's a detailed question and you've got the financial resources, book their time. It's simple.
Book the time, join the community of entrepreneurs, get in the entrepreneurs chat, get in the entrepreneurship Zooms, all that stuff.
I get like
the
messages and emails every fucking week. My business, I have a business idea, this and that. It's like, get on my email list. And when my course opens up for enrollment, get the School of Entrepreneurship and watch the lectures. Join the Zoom calls, ask the questions then. That's why it's all there, man, for guys that are serious, right? Otherwise, just sit there and have fun being poor. I don't care. I mean, how much free content do you have to give away for people to understand that there's value? I mean, you obviously think there's value there because you want to ask the questions, right? But that's just the way that guys are. They're lazy. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to spend the money, right? I've spent so much money on mentors and coaches and going to mastermind events and conferences and all this shit, like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's all been worth it. But people are stingy. Like one of the things that bugs the shit in me whenever I go to the fucking grocery store. Like I wish they had a lineup in the grocery store that doesn't let the fucking coupon clippers there that like price match. It's like you'll stand in the fucking lineup trying to get your shit. And it's like there's always somebody in front of you, like 1 or 2 spots ahead. The fucking yogurt was like $1.99 in this flyer, but you guys are selling it for like $2.05. So I need you guys to price match it. And they'll be going through it. You got to call a manager, and the fucking manager comes and shit like that. And it's like, fuck. For 5 cents, like that's how you're going to get rich, saving yourself 5 or 10 or 15 or 50 cents in a fucking checkout. You get rich by accumulating wealth, by doing something of value and making money and fucking investing it, not fucking around. But that's what most people do. Rich. And that's why it's easy to make the bank.
You'll love this in California. And I'm sure you have your equivalency in Canada or other states in the US where cart full of junk food, Cheetos, donuts, full sugar sodas, and they pull out that EBT card. Like that government has to pay for it. But then they have like a case of alcohol, they buy some cigarettes, pull the wad of cash out of their pocket and throw it down on that. I get those people all the damn time in California, and it is infuriating. And they're always lollygagging along. They don't have anywhere to be, so they hold up the entire line and then make a whole scene out of it. And it's really quite the spectacle, but also quite annoying.
I'm just going to block dumbasses. Fucking retards. Yeah. Doing the work is that hard. Like it's literally that hard for guys. wander around watching shit, masturbating to content, and you're not willing to fucking put in the time and the work. Like, it's like, dude, talk is cheap.
Moff and Josh and I were talking about this the other day. It's actually, to me, it's actually harder to not do the work, to just stay complacent. That is physically painful for, I think, guys
Winners
that are
win.
wired
Winners
a
win,
different
right?
way.
Like, once you get comfortable and you get used to racking up wins, whether it's wins with women, wins with money, wins in business, wins with cars, wins with friends, winners keep winning. It's like that big, you know, the Jim Collins book, From Good to Great, he talks about the big flywheel and how it's very heavy and it's hard to, you know, it takes a lot of effort and resources to start turning something big and heavy like that. But once it starts turning and it picks up some momentum, it moves a lot faster and it requires less effort to keep them spinning. Kind of like the concept of spinning plates, you know, like the whole notion of spinning plates.
Exactly,
you get the plate up there and you start spinning it, but once it starts going and it's got inertia and it's going, you just kind of have to hold it there for a little bit. It's the same thing with women, right? Like, once you figure out the concept of spinning plates, you don't have to put too much effort into it. It's like the figuring out part sort of thing, and like the management of it. But that's what business and success is. It's getting that big heavy object to start moving, applying the resources, the inertia starts to move, and then you can start to allocate it elsewhere, right? Like, I could work twice as hard that, is what I'm working right now, put in twice as much effort, twice as much time, and I could probably 5-10x my money, right? But there's an area of diminishing returns where it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But to even move that big heavy flywheel for most people, they just don't want to do it, and that's why losers keep losing, and that's why winners keep winning. Winners win, losers lose. It's, to move from losing to winning requires a lot of effort. And at some point, guys do this all the time. We talk about this, with women, with guys that we talk to, like we were chatting about this before. They run into an obstacle and they say, "Oh, women are hopeless. I can't do anything.
Yeah,
it's
they're all
never
terrible."
Work it." Yeah, they're
me.
terrible
Not
creatures.
me.
It's got nothing to do with me. It's got nothing to do with my game or what I'm doing. It's just that women are horrible and fuck the West, whatever sort of thing like that. Okay, fine. How's that working out for you? Because I can show you about half a dozen guys out there that are in wheelchairs, don't have any legs or arms, that have families that have reproduced, that got married, that have women, throwing themselves at them. It's like, don't do the work. It doesn't matter to me, right? But then they cry about it. "Oh, I don't understand. You got your dickers in a notch."
Well, the secret they don't realize is the work is fun. That's what me, Moff, and Josh are talking about. The process is enjoyable. Maybe not at first, but once you start getting some wins, it becomes addicting, and you want to say, "Well, if I can do this, what the hell else can I do?" And you just keep going.
Yeah. But my favorite is my buddies with the exotic cars always talk about this when we go out. It's like when you go to a gas station, there's always somebody that comes up to you like, "Oh, really nice car," and this and that and the other thing. And they'll be like, like their ending comment is usually, "Must be nice." Right?
Yeah, you're probably leasing it anyway.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it must be. Yeah.
What's it like to be lucky?
It is nice. It is actually very nice to drive it and enjoy it and buy them and own them, sort of thing. But what these guys think is like, you got lucky, or you're a thief, or you ripped somebody off, or something like that. It's like, you can do the work too.
There was some guy in the comment.
We're all capable of it.
There was some guy in the comment section when you did the not the Baja Rally, but the most recent one before that, where guys like, "I don't understand supercars. They're not even that fun. Like, why would you even waste your money on this?" It's like, dude,
they're awesome.
That's a lot of work for I'm broke.
Yeah, like, just say you're broke. It's okay.
like I understand if you don't like cars, fine. But if you don't like cars, you're not going to say anything, right? Like, you just don't care. Like, I don't like cats. Like, if I see a cat video, I'm not going to be like, "I don't understand cats. They're stupid. They just shit everywhere. They're not loyal. They don't come when you call them." I just don't care, right? Because I don't like cats. I don't give a fuck. But it's somebody that wants a car that's complaining about it. So that's why they say that they're stupid and they're not a good idea or a good place to put your money.
Well, the complacency is a real problem, especially when you talk about the circles that guys tend to run in. Because, I mean, like I said, and this goes back to kind of the 10%, for some guys, it's really easy to become complacent and be the big fish in the small pond. Guys that don't leave their hometown, guys that, I have friends that have never left a town of 40,000 people, and they're their hometown guys, and they were like the prom king or the football captain or whatever, and that's their peak, and they're always going to ride on those coattails and be known by that. But I've spoken about the epiphany I sort of had in Jackson Hole in the meetup in July, where when I finally cracked the ceiling of like 100K a year, like that 100K salary, that the mythical 6 figures. I was a guy, like, I'm from a small town, man, 40,000 people. rural Virginia, middle of nowhere. And I was like, oh, wow. Like moved to New York City when I was 23. And I was like, wow, like I've made it. There it is, 6 figures. Like I'm in. And then I go to Jackson Hole and I'm riding shotgun with a good friend in his McLaren that he paid cash for. And I'm just like, dude, like I have so much further to go. And so, but a lot of guys won't do that. A lot of guys aren't going to try to get into those rooms because they know that they like. Even Jaron talked a little bit about his sort of origin story in the community. For me, I had a very similar experience where I got in there and I said, "Okay, man, I'm in this community. I got in here because I'm trying to build a tribe. I don't really know where I fit in on this puzzle or my value." And the first thing what I focused on was just getting out. Like for me, it was getting out there and dating and just taking shots. I was doing the dating app thing. I was just going out. I was writing field reports probably every other day, and I was reporting back with what I learned. And that's all it was. It's if I didn't have any value to bring off the bat, I had to go do some work to kind of figure out what that value is and then give that back to the community. And then that led to me coming on your show a little more. You and I started to develop a good relationship where I would just constantly focus on bringing you value if I was going to be on your channel. So you could turn that into clips. So you could turn that into content that could continue to, funnel you more money in ads. That was my whole thing. Like there are guys that will call into the Monday shows. A lot of them call in, this, like a lot of them call in because they're starstruck for one, or two, because, and you've talked about guys that want to book your time just to like talk with you because they're fans, or a lot of guys will do that on Mondays too. But I was like, I'll never call into a Rich Cooper show if I don't have some sort of value to bring that you can use. And I think that's something that just gets lost on a lot of guys. And we talk about bring value. If you don't have any, go figure out how to make some and then report back. You have a skill. You have something that you can do to, for most people. There was a great story that I heard at one point. There was this young kid that would show up at exotic car meets, like the Cars and Coffees, where you get the Lambos and the Ferraris and the McLarens and stuff like that. And he had a decent camera. He had there's a bit of an older, like a DSLR, but he would go around and shoot photographs of people's cars, and he figured out how to do photography. And then he would connect with them and like send them the pictures or tag them on social media. And he started to make some contacts. Like that's how this guy here in Toronto, his name is Lucas Scarfone, and I've shouted out to him before. He sent me a message the other day on Instagram, but he's got this nice 992 Porsche GT3 touring that he just bought this year. And, he started out as that kid just doing photography, right? And he figured out a way to make the contacts. I did a video on this, I don't know, it was last winter, I think. And I don't watch Tony Robbins. I think he's a bit of he's a very good marketer. He knows what he's doing. He's not stupid. Yeah, he's that woo-woo guy. It was like a couple years ago.
I have friends that work for him here in San Diego.
Yeah, like he's not going to teach me anything, but there's something that he said one time, which I've always known. And he said, like, you got to raise your standards. If you want to get better results out of life, raise your standards. Like, if you set standards around the people that you surround yourself with, the kind of jobs you're willing to do, the women that you're going to date, what you will and won't tolerate with women and friends and stuff like that. When you raise your standards, your life will improve. And if you want to make more money and get better outcomes in life, one of the things you have to do is raise your standards. Like your mind's eye. And I was talking about this before. There's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. He used to do, I think it was reconstructive surgery on like burn victims and rhinoplasty and shit like that. And one of the things he noticed, it's a very old book. It's been updated like 3 or 4 times. It's at least 50 years old. One of the things that he noticed is if somebody still saw themselves as disfigured, disformed, whatever, they would still maintain that frame, even if they looked in the mirror and their face was as perfect as possible, right? They would still think that they were a loser, right? The same reason why a lot of these like nihilistic guys that suck with women that never get anywhere with women, I can't do it because I'm too short, or women are impossible. It's like, no, that's not women. That's you. That's your mindset. Because I know lots of short guys that get lots of tail. I know lots of guys that are whatever, that solve that problem because they up their game and they do other things that improve, themselves. I even said in my book, if you're short, be short, but be jacked, funny, interesting, influential, rich, drive nice cars, right? Fix the areas that you can control. But yeah, like the whole thing with like the better results is just improve your standards, hold yourself to higher standards. Like Moff, when you called in, the very first time, and you were in a little bit of a ball of bullshit, and your life was, distressed. You're still in New York. You still, dealing with some unresolved issues, with the ex and all that sort of stuff. Like, you at some point in your head said, this is bullshit. This is not the guy that I am or the guy that I want to be. And then you started to raise your standards. And what happened? Hi, we're talking today, right? Like, you've been around that long. Like, it only took you about a year and a bit. It wasn't even a year, was it?
Well, I mean, as far as, well, it depends on what you mean, like where is arriving. But I mean, I was in that night, like after I had that show with you and Aaron, I literally signed up for the community right as soon as we hopped off the call.
Right.
And I was like, this shit's got to stop. Like, this has got to end. I've got to do something. And it's just saying, like, whatever I'm doing now is not working. So it's just trying something else.
Yeah, straight up.
That's a lot of guys won't do that. But yeah, I was made the right call.
Got to wrap up in about 10 minutes. Is there anything else you guys wanted to cover before we call it a day?
Yeah, I think on that note, Rich, you mentioned Tony Robbins, and I've been watching a lot of Alex Hormozi lately, and I like something that a concept he put out there is things that you think and that you speak, you're giving power to them and putting them into existence. And Tony Robbins used to say something like that too, that we are the stories we tell ourselves. And since that, for my master's degree, I studied like ethnography, which is a way of the way in which people use language to express their reality. So I naturally kind of look at that stuff already. And it is really interesting when, again, a lot of times, especially when it comes to the States, you meet all these different guys and you really listen to the stories they tell themselves. And you can get a pretty good idea of where they are in life, whether they're going to go somewhere in life, and if they're stuck in life, why they're stuck in life. And I think that's really important. And I'm glad that newer channels that are coming on, again, I refer back to Alex Hormozi. He always talks about that, where he did a video, Why I Don't Go Home for Thanksgiving. And he says something along the lines of, well, people know me from 10 years ago, and they want to keep forcing this idea of who I was back then on me. And that doesn't work for me. And I really like some of those points that he makes, because I feel like that whenever I come back to the US, whenever I run into people from previous chapters of my life, there's such a disconnect between us. And not saying that I'm necessarily better than them or anything of that nature. It's just that I've gone in a different direction, and maybe they've remained stagnant, or they've gone in an opposite direction, and that creates some distance between us. But I think that's really important too, is to constantly audit your friend circle, but audit your own internal belief systems too. What are the things you say about yourself? Because I've learned the more I get older, and I'm still young compared to Rich, I know you, but the more you believe in something, the more it becomes your reality. And that can be anything. So you have to be really careful. And I was telling a buddy last night, I'm very diligent about what I put in my head. There's certain things like that Dahmer movie or whatever. That took a few days to get that shit out of my head. I don't want that stuff in my brain mulling around in there. Yeah. So be very careful, guys, about what you're putting in your brain. It's a very powerful tool, and you don't want to steer it the wrong direction.
I used to say the same thing, man. Like I had a guy ask me one time, he was like, well, how'd you get over your ex rather quickly? Or, what I used to do, and this is about as woo-woo as I'll get, but Jana, you and I have talked about this a lot before. And
I'm pretty woo-woo. You guys notice that. Yeah.
I've probably told this story about a dozen or so times where, like, the first thing that I did, like, when me and my ex broke up, we were still living together. We were still living in the same house for a month. We were both going out on dates and then sleeping in the same bed. It was fucking weird. But like, we lived together. We still had a dog together at the time, but I was going out on dates. And so obviously the living situation would always come up. Oh, do you have roommates? Do you live by yourself? Whatever. Where I would talk about.
I still sleep in the same bed with my ex.
And it would always come up and say,
not a big deal.
My ex.
No big deal.
And so at the time I was still really, into her. I wanted to get back with her. I was still trying to figure out how I could kind of pull that off. And this was back in like December of 21, and coming up on 2 years, which is nuts. But of course, I would say, never want to tell a girl like, oh, yeah, I really still love my ex. I wish I could get back with her. Like, love of my life, yada, yada, yada. I'm only here on a rebound. I'm just trying to smash. So I would say things like, oh, she's a great girl. We just, grew apart. We realized that we're not right for each other as far as friend that goes. We're still going to be good friends, blah, blah, blah. All of this was complete BS, complete lies. Wish her nothing but the best. She's a great person. And that started, like, I remember after maybe like a half a dozen or more so dates that I had told that story enough times that eventually it became true. And I wasn't even lying about it. I wasn't saying like, oh yeah, like she's really great. Like, it's like, yeah, she's whatever. Like, it's all good. Like, wish her nothing but the best. I don't have any ill will towards her. Like, she'll figure it out. Just like, I'm going to figure it out. And then eventually that just became the reality. Like I didn't harbor any ill will or resentment anymore towards her because that's now the story that I told myself. Same thing with guys that come in and say, we've had a recent friend that goes, she's the best I've ever had. Never going to find anything better like her. Like that's the only reason I keep going back to her. And it's,
you're not.
That's that. If that's the story and the reality that you create for yourself, that's going to be your experience.
At some point, Chris, when you get to that certain level, that line in the sand, you know, whatever that glass ceiling is that you push through, that she set on you, you're going to hear from her. She's going to be like, "Hey, how's it going? How you been? You know, I ran into so-and-so the other day, and you know, they mentioned
they always
something
come back. Yeah,
they always come back." I want to close on this note. We were talking about this last night in our private chat. There's a little fella by the name of Sean Stevenson, and I'm dropping the video in all the chats right now. And he has a quote, which I put in there before the video: "Never believe a prediction that doesn't empower you." I want you to go watch that video after this, leave a comment on it, and share that video somewhere else, because that video, it was recorded, I think, 3 months before he died. He got in a accident. I mean, he was never supposed to live past 3 or 4 months anyway. He lived to like 40 something. So, you know, he got somewhere in life, but he was a smart guy. He was funny. He didn't let any of the limiting things go, like physically limiting bullshit in his life hold him back. He said, "Fuck this. I'm not going to subscribe to a loser mindset." So don't talk about how do I do this? How do I do that? Get rid of the limiting beliefs. Never believe a prediction that doesn't empower you. If you're subscribed to, I can't be rich because rich people are whatever, or I can't get girls because girls are whatever, or I can't be physically fit because whatever, those are predictions that do not empower you. And the reason why you're at where you're at is because you believe that bullshit. So on that note, we'll wrap up. Find Jaron and Moff on Instagram is probably the best way to connect, especially if you want to hop into the 10% community and get started somewhere. Get on my email list, which is in the ticker below, so you can stay in touch with me on announcements and big shit that's happening. I'm going to do Monday night show on sleep. I've had really bad sleep in the past in my life, and over the last few years, I've done quite a lot to fix that. And I'm at the point now where I can sleep 8-9 hours. I get deep sleep. I get restful sleep. My blood oxygen's high. I'm a little bit of a biohacker. I don't talk about it too much publicly, but I'm going to dispense some cold hard truth bombs and some really solid nuggets for you guys Monday night at 8 p.m. on the Unplugged Alpha podcast. So thanks for hopping in, boys. Check them out, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Have an awesome weekend.
See ya.